Hello, my name is Trevor James, and if you are listening to this, then you are currently in a coma. Please wake up. This podcast isn't a podcast, it is your wife and your kids trying to reach you relentlessly, and this is how it is manifesting in your mindscape. This voice you're hearing is not a podcast host, this is the voice of your eldest son trying to get through to you. Your consciousness is scattered, and you are currently experiencing life as a million different parts of your own subconscious at the same time. But we miss you. Please, wake up and come back to us. Hello. Welcome to Trailing Off with Trevor James. I am Trevor James. I am the podcast host here. Definitely not your subconscious trying to reach you through subliminal messaging or anything like that. This is just a really cool podcast that you can listen to if you're bored. And you know what? I think you should check it out. Keep listening. We got some really cool stuff on board today. So yeah, we really appreciate your view. Please wake up. Nothing you are experiencing right now is real. It's all a dream. You have a wife and 3 beautiful kids in the real world. Please wake up.
Wake up.
Sorry about the technical difficulties there, folks. I'm not really sure what's going on. Anyways, you know how they say live in the moment, right? Well, I've always heard that, and I guess I've always thought I was trying to do that. But this week I kind of realized I spend so much of my day telling myself I want to be home, or I want to be doing this or that, or blah, 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 or whatever. It's really kind of hard to turn that off, because it's kind of a subconscious thing I do. I'm trying to train my brain to not do that all the time, trying to just think, what am I doing right now, and how can I be the most present, even if it sucks? Especially if whatever I'm doing sucks, I guess. I kind of tell myself I'm figuring out a problem is why I'm doing it, but I'm not. Like, I'll be at work all day thinking about what I'm going to do when I get home and how I'm going to accomplish it, and it'll seem so important all day, and then most of the time I get home and I find something completely different to do. It's like a game I play, or a lie I'm telling myself or something. I don't know. I'll keep you updated on that, I guess. Today, I'm joined by JV Hilliard. He's the author of the Warminster Saga, which is a saga of dark fantasy novels. There are 4 books in the saga currently, and another trilogy on the way. The guy has a massively expansive mind, and he's never touched a single drug, which I don't know if that's really worth mentioning, I guess, but the guy exudes creativity. I think it's because he plays Dungeons and Dragons every week. Something I honestly might start doing myself if I can figure it out, if I can swing it. But anyways, you can check him out at jvhilliard.com. That link will be in the episode description. You can find his books there and just everything there. And now I have a website too. You can go to trevorjames.org. I'm not a nonprofit, but org is because trevorjames.com, trevorjames.net were both taken, so I went with org. You can find all of my bullshit there. You can listen to my podcast there. It even tells me when you're listening, and I'll come and listen with you, and it'll be like we're listening together. Okay, it doesn't actually tell me when you're listening, but it'll still be like we're hanging out. If you made it this far into the episode, then you took too long to take the message seriously. And unfortunately, I have to inform you that your wife has fallen in love with Steve from work. Your kids actually respect him and take his advice to heart. They've moved on. And well, I guess it's time for you to do the same. So hopefully this episode can help you come to terms with that. Thanks again for listening. And without further ado, here's JV Hilliard. That's perfect. Cool. No, we're good.
How's that? Okay.
That was perfect. We're good.
Good.
So, how you doing today? How's your week been?
It's busy.
Yeah, I feel that, man. I feel that.
Yeah. So we I own a couple of businesses, and one of them that I own is a sports scouting service. It's called Draft Nation, and we do NHL and NFL scouting of players and future prospects for drafts and things like that. And this year is the busiest we've had in the 3 years
No
we've been
shit.
doing it, and it's good busy, but it's this time of year because hockey just started and football's cranking.
Right.
Like our weekends happen to be like Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It's really kind of weird. So I try to squeeze in everything else I can on those 2 days.
Right.
It's all consuming, but in a good way.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Wow, that's real cool. So you got a lot of stuff going on. Then you're a writer. You fucking business owner. That's cool, man. So, but we'll get started. Get into your book. Talk a little about your book. Talk about anything you want. You can bring up whatever you want, man. It doesn't have to just be about the book, but um,
Yeah, no, I'm all good. I think I speak well extemporaneously, so feel
cool.
free to throw anything at me that you want, and it
Sick.
doesn't matter what it's about. I'll try to answer my best.
No, sweet, man. I mean, we can start talking about your book. Do you want to talk? I read. I wasn't able to read the whole thing, obviously, because there's a lot of book there, and it's been like a week. But I read. I got through the prologue and a little bit of the first chapter of the first one of the whatever was the first one called. It's
Last Keeper.
the Last
Yeah.
Keeper. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, and it's
Yeah, we can start there if you want. I don't mind. That's
yeah,
what that's how I got connected with you, so it's
yeah,
not a
no,
problem.
it's a cool book. So I haven't read a fantasy book since I was in high school. I think it was kind of weird getting back into that. I used to love that shit. I just as an adult, it's hard to have time for that kind of shit. But
Yeah, so I'm like you. I mean, when I was growing up, I used to love the fantasy adventure realm.
right,
Absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it when I was in elementary school. I had a teacher at the time that went out on a medical sabbatical, and my substitute teacher for the last 6 weeks somehow, some way, got us permission to read us The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and
oh,
that
that's
was our
cool.
English class.
That's cool.
And from there, I just fell in love with it. I was always, excited about any movie that had a sword and a sorcerer and a dragon
Right.
in it anyway. And then I fell in love with Dungeons and Dragons, and I started doing creative writing in high school, but then real life takes over, like you just mentioned. And I at first, right out of school, I was working in DC on the Hill for a senator, and ended up working on Armed Services Committee, and all of a sudden I look up and 20 years go by, and I was a defense lobbyist, and all of that stuff is a lot of realism, right?
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, and when COVID happened, I had zero to do. Like DC was shut down for like 18 months, so my wife's me in a very kind and loving way that I was going to drive her nuts if I didn't find a way to channel my creativity
Yeah.
somewhere.
I get
And
that.
so I decided to do exactly what you said. I kind of returned to my childhood and wrote that fantasy book, which I thought was going to be a standalone novel.
Mm,
Turns out that it caught some fire and it became a series. And now the fourth book in the quadrilogy just launched about a month or so ago, called Echoes of Ghostwood. And it's the final book in the series where it wraps up the plot lines and the character arcs of books 1 through 4. But ultimately, I've got some traction with it, man. So I've got,
that's cool.
um, we've got a video game coming out in 2026. I've got a graphic novel coming out in 2026. I've got a couple of standalone novels about the origin stories about the more popular characters coming out in 2025. And then in 2026 as well, we launched the next trilogy, which is a follow-up to these four. So
Okay.
um, I'm excited about it. It's taken on a life of its own. And frankly, I don't mind it. It's a lot better than what I was doing in my day job prior
Right.
to. So I'll take it.
No, that's gotta feel good, man, to for it to catch traction like that. Hell yeah. So that you said you're coming out with a new trilogy with them and everything. Is it gonna be different? You said that's like the different characters then, or gonna be kind of
Well,
similar?
it's
Or?
some of them will be different.
Okay.
There's a core group of characters that survive the first four
Okay.
and will be featured in the next three. But not all the good characters survive. Not all the
Right.
bad characters survive,
Right.
right? So like, for all intents and purposes, people. I've been accosted by people at Comic Cons and Galaxy Cons and things, and telling me, "Don't kill this character. What happens to that character? This character, I didn't see
That's
what
cool.
happened to them. How you?" And so I have a chance to to now build that out as I continue to write the next series. So it's going to be a continuing story because even though the plot lines kind of wrap up, there's still this world that I've spent the last
I get
three
that.
years building. and as a result, people want to know what else is going on, or
Right.
they want a history of it, which is why I'm giving them the origin stories of
Well,
some
that's
of the
cool.
like one of them's a villain and two of them are the heroes, and so they get to see where they come from and what's going to happen. And that third book actually is the prelude to what happens in the next series. It's a pretty cool. So it's not just an origin story; it's also kind of like how we get to
Okay.
series two of the
S
Warminster Saga. So it's a lot of fun, man.
so it's all
It's
intertwined,
been
yeah.
great, and
I like that. I like that.
yeah, it's
That's
been
cool.
good.
So you said Lord of the Rings was a big inspiration for you, and like I said, in the little, I haven't read much, but I was getting into it, and I was like getting into it, and it definitely has a similar vibe. I hope you don't take that as an. I'm not saying it's like ripping anything off. It just I definitely got that vibe of like just that real Tolkien esque kind of quaint world. You know what I'm saying? But then it's like got this like kind of dark feel to it too. So um,
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head, right? So Tolkien was the granddaddy of them all, right?
oh yeah,
There would not be a fantasy genre or
oh for sure,
subgenres if it was not for The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. So
right.
I am honored to be cast
No,
in
that's
that
cool.
mold. I don't mind. And tropes are the way things. I mean, people there's an expectation that they're going to see dragons and magic and
Yeah,
dwarves and elves and all this kind of fun stuff as part of that. And but when you create your own world, you want to create something that's unique. So I don't use Middle Earth. I don't borrow much from
obviously,
Middle
yeah,
Earth.
yeah, yeah.
I've created my own history, my own cultures, my own political governance, my own pantheon of gods,
That's
currencies
that's
different,
hard,
all
man.
those kind
Fuck.
of things to make it, yeah, but it really kind of fleshes it
Yeah,
out,
that's
especially
cool.
when you're working with in a world where you don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? You want enough realism so that someone can suspend disbelief, but enough fantasy that they're happy with the escapism that you're giving them. And so it was for me something that I worked hard at in terms of the world building and some of the stuff that goes around with that, including the history and spellcraft and stuff. But also, um, you know, I think everybody has patterned themselves after Tolkien in some way, shape, or form. If you look at Martin and what he did with Game of
Yeah,
Thrones, it's a
definitely,
darker version of it. Or if you look at
definitely.
the Sword of Shannara and what they did with that, it's basically Tolkien just cast in a different world. Even if you look at the Dungeons and Dragons stuff, Dungeons and Dragons was born in the early 70s and popularized
Yeah,
based on all of these myths and things like that too. So to be put into that category is an
that's
absolute
cool.
honor, and I don't mind at
Yeah,
all.
I've always wanted to get into Dungeons and Dragons, but you got to have a group of friends that want to do that shit too. Man, like, I've never found people that want to fucking play that shit with me,
Well,
but
it's
I'd
easier
love
than you
to,
think
man.
now, man. It's
Is it
online, and you can
really?
find people that want to play or are looking for a group. And
Uh,
I've been playing with the same guys since we were in high school, and
that's
we get
cool.
together Sundays and nerd out from like 6 to 10 p.m. So while
That's
other
cool.
guys are playing poker or hitting the cigar bar,
Right.
we channel our inner geek and
Hey, that's
nerd out
cool.
for 4 hours on a Sunday night. And what was at once an in-person thing with the advent of Skype and then Zoom and all the other technologies and because we're all scattered around the country now, even though
Really?
we all went to the same high school and different grades and colleges and stuff. But I've got a guy that comes in from Florida. I got another guy that comes in
So
from
it
Kentucky.
translates.
Another
Sorry,
guy.
not to interrupt, but it translates pretty well over video chat
Yeah.
too, huh? I wouldn't think that. That's cool. Interesting.
Yeah, well, there's some aids that have been created to help you. There are
Okay.
there are tools out there like Fantasy Grounds and others where you can buy a subscription to them, and it allows you to roll dice
Oh,
online. You
that's
can
cool.
see character sheets. You can see the maps that the dungeon master's kind of taking you
Mm,
through. And in the beginning, it was a little harder, but since we were veterans of the game, a lot of this is like a group delusion anyway, right? It's some made up shit in your head, right? So, like, if I'm talking to you and I say, behind you is, an orc with a sword or a dragon swooping down from below, you don't need to actually see it because you're not seeing it anyway. It's literally in your head. There's nothing there. And as long as you can hear me, it's good enough. And then as long as you're not cheating when you're rolling your dice, things can happen. Even if it's good storytelling, you don't cheat anyway. Sometimes it's okay for characters to die or things not to go the way you want, and it's fun as a dungeon master because then you have to stay on your toes. And I think that's what helps me be such a good storyteller. I've told stories since I was 10.
I was gonna ask if that
And
if you think that helped you get into that, because one thing I want
oh,
to
there's yeah, no doubt.
yeah, for
Go
sure.
ahead.
So one thing I want to ask, you said your job before this was pretty like real and like like lobbying kind of thing and like so was it hard to to start writing? Was it hard to like channel that creativity into and do that? Was that hard to start? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was hard in the sense that I had to learn to write a different style. I was always writing every single day, whether it was legislation or a grant or a contract or a speech or a policy paper or
Okay.
copy for somebody's website. The habit of writing followed me from high school. It was something I did every single day. And whether I was trying to influence a vote on the Hill or trying to influence the award of a grant, there are certain things you do in nonfiction that you cannot do in fiction,
Right.
right? And so I
Mm,
think for me, the habit of writing was never the issue.
okay.
It was learning how to write with pace,
I get
learning
that.
how to write in dialogue that you're making up for somebody, learning to, that it's that jump from nonfiction to prose that really was difficult in the beginning. And thankfully, I'm a deep reader. I enjoy reading. I read a book or two a week. And so for
Yeah.
me, I understood it and it was easy to kind of fall back into it. I was just, instead of reading, now I was doing. In this case, I'm authoring, I'm writing. And so once I got the knack of that and the rules for that, and it went through an editing process, and it became a lot easier for me, and now it's just habit. I've been doing it for 3 years, and so you just kind of fall into it, but every book I write is better than the last one. Every paragraph, every chapter is better because, you're just learning to do it, and it's not like it's not like the back of my hand where my old job was. That's exactly what I was every day. It was the same thing over and over again, and I can do it in my sleep. This is slowly but surely getting to that point, and then once I'm there, I think that, I should be able to keep knocking these things down.
Yeah. Just when I was in high school, I loved writing, man. I wrote all the time. Creative writing was my favorite thing. I fucking just draw like gigabytes of stories that I'd written on my computer and shit. And then I don't know what happened, man. I think I wrote a lot with a girlfriend I had, and then I think when we broke up, I just stopped. And I've tried so many times to get back into it, and I get like 2 or 3 pages in, and I just fucking I can't. I don't know. So
Well, I'll tell you what happened with me, and maybe you wanna try this, maybe you don't. I don't know what kind of time you have on your hands, but, I took a writing class,
mm,
at a local community college, and right at the time I started taking it, it converted into a virtual writing class because COVID had happened, and during that time, it was the fact that you had something due once a week. It wasn't long, it was like 1,500 words, so it's a small chapter or almost a chapter. But it was something that you were on the hook for, and then you ended up reading other people's stuff, and you would
yeah,
constructively critique one another as part of the class. So it wasn't just the professor; it was a group of 10 people that would all read everybody else's stuff, and sometimes it was outside of genres that you like. So when I had was scoring someone else's work, and it was in romance. I had never read a romance novel
right.
before, and they had never read a fantasy novel before, or a horror novel, or whatever. And the group was an eclectic mix of people, man, woman, old, young, you name it. It was in there, and so it gives you a different perspective, but then it also gives you that assignment, and it really becomes muscle memory, like you said. When you were writing all the time and then you got out of it, it's like the day you stop going to the gym. You
Right.
feel fat, right? You're like,
Yeah,
oh, I
that's
got to
it
go
too.
do that. I'm falling out of my rhythm. But once you make writing a habit, it's hard to get away from it because that's when the wheels are always turning. Even when
Right.
you're sleeping, I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, I got to remember to write that today, or that's a good one. Or I'll be driving in the car and something will, I'll drive by a road sign and like a name,
Right.
or I'll drive by a place and remember the way it looked in a scene and how I
Mhm.
could place that in a book. And then you just take those dictated notes, or, some people carry around a book and write notes in it, and those things can become a story, and that's how it became habit for me, and maybe one day it could become habit for you again.
Maybe, yeah. Because I wanted to write a novel. That was my dream, dude. I tell you what, I'd started and I had a like a collection of short stories that a fucking publisher wanted to publish when I was 17, and I was all excited for it and everything. I don't know, it might have been I don't know, might have been a scam, but anyways, I was excited, and they bugged me about it for like a year, and they're like, "We just need more of them because we can't publish 4 short stories. We need like 15." And I was like, "Okay, I'll get to it." And then that was about the time I stopped. I just never did it, but I don't know.
But did you still have them?
I think somewhere in a Google Drive folder. Wait, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't. I mean, I read one and I was like, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense now. But at the time, it was like mind blowing. I swear it was the coolest thing ever. I was like, this is
Yeah.
awesome, but whatever.
It's funny, I go back and read stuff that I'd written and you're like, yeah, this could be better," but ultimately, if you had the interest of somebody, whether it was a an anthology of short stories like that. I mean, those
Mhm.
things are very popular. People like to
Yeah,
read them.
yeah,
It's it takes a different person to read epic fantasy. Like the kind of stuff I
for
write
sure.
is usually 150,000 words or more, 500 pages or
Yeah,
more,
big
and not
books.
everybody has the wherewithal to do that. They don't they or
Yeah,
the patience to do that. And they prefer short stories, and they're popular for a reason.
yeah, for sure. Hmm. You ever write short stories at all, or you went straight for the
Oh,
big
I'm on
shit?
the opposite end of the spectrum, man. I wish I could. Like, I honestly I have a problem, and it's not bad. It's just the way I write. I think I can't think small. Like the minute like I tried these like writing contests, which were like, oh, here's 3 words, and you've got an hour to come back, and we need 500 words in an hour, and you're like, I freeze up because I don't understand
Yeah,
the scope of it. For me, I'm more like Tolkien in the sense where, oh, I need a history and I need a direction of where we're going. I need to know what's going on here, and I'm a super planner when
uh-huh.
it comes to stuff. And then there are people that can just sit down and start writing by the seat of their pants, right? And I'm not one of them. I've
Yeah,
tried. I even tried. I fell into the I tried to, in a good way, discipline myself by going onto Kindle and writing a Vela story, and they restrict you on how many words it can be, right? So it's no longer it's you're looking at 1,800 words
mhm,
per submission, and my thought was that was going to help me become a writer, so I can write smaller, and I hated it. So
yeah.
like I'm like I can't do it. It's not in me. Writing that short I have ideas for short stories, but then I ultimately blow them up.
You can't
And
wrap
it's
it
like, "Well,
up.
tell me the
Yeah,
history, what's gonna
yeah. You
happen
can't wrap
next," and
it
all that
up.
stuff, and I just
I get it.
it's not my style, man. I've
Oh, that's
tried,
cool.
but I don't have that in my blood.
That's cool. I'd always wondered if it was like that because I've tried to write the novel so many times, but I just like I said, I'm a small but I went to music. I changed to music, and overall, I think that kind of just sucked up all my time and focus, But is what it is.
Yeah, no, look, creatives, it doesn't matter what kind of creative you are. What I
Hmm.
find is even when I have writer's block, that's what I typically do. I'll reach out to my creative friends, and, the goal there is really to help them. It doesn't matter if they're a potter, if they're in music, if they paint,
Yep.
or if they write. Typically, creatives want to help you get over that block, whatever
Oh
you
yeah,
have, or they'll give
yeah,
you an opinion in a constructively critical way that will help you. But ultimately, that's not. I for me, I think that's it's a way for those in the community to express themselves when they like it, and everybody chooses their own form. And some people can do multiple forms. Like I can't draw a straight line with a
yeah.
ruler, so I'm not the artist
Not a
type.
drawer, huh?
But I appreciate what they do, and I
Yeah,
appreciate their art and the expression of it.
same.
I just I know my lane and I stay in it.
Yeah. Um, I have a lot of questions I want to go from there, but I guess that's a good segue. And I want to ask you, what are your opinions on the emergence of AI right now? And just
So it could be used in the right context as an asset and a tool, but in the wrong context, it's really plagiarism at its worst, right? So, by way of example, I don't think there's any harm by me asking ChatGPT to help me put together copy for my website, looking at other sites that are similar to mine to help me put together an 80% version of what's going to be there. That saves
right.
time and money, and ultimately it comes back okay. But when you read it, AI is not good enough to know that what it has is kind of sucky,
Yeah,
right?
it's a very
Uh,
bad writer, but and I agree it's good, like a good tool for outlines and stuff, but for any kind of
yeah,
it's not an author.
Yeah, so for that's right. Like I had an author friend once tell me that he went out and asked a version of AI to write a book in his voice, and he said it wasn't bad, right?
Really?
Because it basically went to all of his
Oh
books and
no,
stole all the way he wrote,
that's
and then
scary.
gave him a story that he wanted to do from that. But I think that in the time frames and saving time and being professional and formatting and things like that, all of that is great. I think where it really kind of hits the wall is when it's direct plagiarism. And whether it's
Oh yeah.
art, like I've seen beautiful art created with it, and then you find out it stole it from somebody else, and you're just like, um, but anyway,
So you think
yeah.
the books it can write are actually not bad? They're just stolen. Like
Yeah, they're all
plagiarism, basically?
stolen,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Because
and
it
oh,
doesn't have
oh, yeah.
it's not a sentient
It
creature,
gets
it
it from
just
it, yeah.
takes from other people's work
Okay.
and plagiarizes it, and whether it's taking it from a piece of art and creating something, because you said you wanted a purple mermaid. Well, it doesn't know what a purple mermaid is, it just knows this is purple and this is a mermaid by going and taking it, and then it tries to put it together for you. In writing, it's just all it's doing, it's going out and stealing someone else's work
Mhm.
and putting it together, but it doesn't know that what it's done is
Yeah. Oh,
plagiarized.
yeah.
And so until they could, and now you've got these reverse AI engines that'll give you a percentage as to what, 86% of this book was plagiarized,
Right.
right? And it'll tell you by reverse
Didn't know
engineering
that.
it
Didn't
that
know
it
it had those.
actually can
That's
do,
cool.
that it identifies that the plagiarism took place.
Yeah.
So
So,
in
I
any event,
I agree with you 100% on that. I'm more surprised that you think the writing is good. I've never I've never actually read anything it's written on a grand scale like that, but, like, I've heard a lot of comedians will ask it to write a joke, and they say the jokes are fucking terrible. But
yeah, so that's the thing. It doesn't understand context.
right.
So, but if you just, and I would encourage you to use it once and just see and just say, hey, give me a, s- a story about blah blah blah, and see what it comes. And then as a writer that you've got to tweak it. But at the end of the day, it's not good. Um, it just isn't.
Oh, yeah. I've
So
used it I've
from
used
that
it to
perspective,
sorry.
go ahead.
Sorry, you go. No, sorry, I'm not trying to I thought
No,
you
I
got
was going from that perspective. Like I said, it could be an asset, it could be a tool,
right.
but it has to be measured. There's got to be rules around it for using it, or
Mhm.
else you've just stolen someone
It's
else's
scary.
work and owe them royalties on it.
It's scary, yeah. I I got real scared. I use it like I said, I'm more of a musician, right? So I was using the Suno to make AI music and terrifying, man. Like some of it's shit and none of it's very personal. It all feel has that kind of fake feel, but there were some songs I'm like, this is a good fucking song. Holy shit. This is way better than anything I could make. So but I don't know. It's fucking scary shit, man. I don't know.
Yeah, man, hey, like I said, it can be a tool, but just realize what you're
It's
doing
cool. I
is
mean, yeah, it just
borrowing from someone else, and
that's the
and
that's
I'm
the
using the term borrow, and I don't mean it. It's
yeah,
true plagiarism at its
that's the
worst.
scary
So
thing, man. Straight out of everybody. Yeah, straight up.
yeah, of
Like, but uh, so have you ever read the Silmarillion? I think is how you pronounce that.
course.
You've read
Yep.
it, the whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
heard it's
look,
like
that's the
fucking
beauty
crazy,
of
man.
Tolkien, right?
that's
That's where you go deep dive,
what I was gonna
right?
say.
If you're going to
That's
deep read
sounds like right up
something,
your alley, then, huh?
yeah, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that helps guys like me when I'm developing a world that I can look back and say, wow, he's created a language. He has created cultures. He's created previous battles and wars and political
It's
strife
crazy.
and gods and things like that. And it helps you understand what you need to do to be close to that in some capacity. And as someone who writes epic fantasy, you want to follow in those footsteps and then grow on it. Like there are things that I do, like, and I'll say something that's just obvious, right? So there's a couple of examples in the realm of Tolkien or in the realm of whatever, Lord of the Rings, when they say how is someone paying for something? It's always a gold piece or I've got gold. Well, what does that mean? Like, I don't walk around saying I got gold in my pocket when I have
Right,
dollars.
right.
So I named my currency. I've got copper sheaves and silver laurels and gold
No,
palmettes
that's
and
good.
things and they're printed and they're made differently around the world, but they're all
Right,
made of the same material,
that's cool.
some of which is not magical, others of which is magical, and the values of it are higher and lower as a result. And it adds something to your realm that other people don't have. Or if you're a fan of Game of Thrones again, Jon Snow was the 999th Watcher on the Wall or whatever he was, and he's still using a sword and shield. You're talking about thousands of years have gone by, and there was zero advancement. In the same sword and shield
Right,
that the folks in the Silmarillion were using are the same sword and shield that the folks in Lord of the Rings or Hobbit are using. And so in my realm, I built technological advancements. Now, it's not
that's
enough to
cool.
make it a sci-fi thing, but
Right,
just enough to satisfy my sci-fi readers while also staying within the rubrics of fantasy, which is always kind of a medieval setting and things like that. So there's a development of technology that comes from a city that makes technology. It's a forward-thinking city that values education and free thought as opposed to we're just going to use the same sword and shield and have a horse. Like there are other things that are happening around you, and sometimes they add magic to it, and you can interpret magic however you want. It could be Tolkien's magic, it could be D&D's magic, it could be whoever's magic, godlike magic that's ordained from the ancients or whatever, or it's just something we haven't discovered yet, and now some smart guy figured it out and made it,
Mhm.
without having to do magic. Yeah, and therefore I think those things make my stuff different, and I think every author who makes their world, who writes their Silmarillion, who writes their
Yeah,
stuff and creates their own Middle Earth has to do that in some capacity to make it
that's cool.
unique while also staying within, the guardrails of what those that came before us have built.
No, that's cool that you got that deep into it. That's something, I never even thought about in a book like that. That's cool. Like, I like that. Um, I kind of want to ask, just, and this is really random, so I apologize, but I've been reading about this and kind of looking this. What's your opinion on Narnia? Because Tolkien hated
So
Narnia, and I'm just
yeah,
curious. I don't know. I'm just curious.
yeah, for me, it was another one of these Tolkien-esque books. I know C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were roommates, and the
Yeah.
connectivity there, and the Chronicles of Narnia, and what they did, it wasn't different in the sense that both Tolkien and Lewis built into their stories lessons come from Christianity,
Mm,
right? For Tolkien, it was Frodo sacrificing himself for the greater good and carrying this burden of their societies to his own end. And at the end of the books, he sails away, and he goes and diminishes into the west with the elves, meaning he went to heaven. And C.S. Lewis does the same thing, where you've got this lion who is basically a
Jesus. Yeah.
replacement for Jesus, who sacrifices himself to save the realm,
Hmm.
and the realm comes together to defeat evil. But you see in the end that he's not really sacrificed, that there's another life that's coming, and you're sacrificing yourself for a greater good. And so they buried those principles of Christianity within the books when they put it in a fantasy context so that children
Right.
could understand it and learn from the lessons from that, instead of it being taught from a Bible school or someone that might have a
Right.
religion that's opposed to it. It was the lessons that they took from it. And so Narnia was a step in a different direction, and it might have been more middle grade, kind of like The Hobbit was middle grade,
Mm.
where Lord of the Rings was clearly an adult. It
I
was
never.
made for adults.
I guess I didn't finish Narnia because I just recently found out that at the end of the I know I've read at least the first two books. I don't remember if I read more than that, but I just recently found out that in the last book, the oldest sister doesn't get to go to quote unquote heaven with, he doesn't get to go back to Narnia with everybody. I'm like, what the fuck? That's fucked up. I
Well, look, I mean, yeah, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is everybody's favorite, right? Because it's the
yeah.
first one you read, and and it
Well,
has this great, and then
I read that
as
other
the
one first.
characters,
What was the other one before that? There's one before The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, isn't there?
yeah, but that's the most popular one because it's sort
No,
of
yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah.
one that has the most, yeah,
Yeah, that's the one that
the
I remember.
gravity to it, yeah.
But anyway,
So,
sorry,
and there are
continue.
other authors that are out there that do the same kind of stuff. If you look at Shannara, it's the same stuff. Terry Brooks basically took the same story of Tolkien's and wrapped it up into his own realm called Narnia, with very similar creatures, and taught lessons where Tolkien was an environmentalist in a sense. He was talking about the destruction of trees and the industrialization of the world and how that affects the planet, in this case Middle Earth. And Shannara does some of the same stuff. Even its adaptation on that MTV did not so well 20 years ago,
Yeah.
was still something that kind of gets at those bits and pieces of lessons learned, through the expression of these kind of things. So, it's you can't something that's super unique is hard to do. Tolkien was able to do that, and everybody follows in his footsteps now.
Especially nowadays, it's hard to do something unique. Everything's been done so many times.
Yeah.
Are you religious at all? You spiritual?
Not at all.
Not
I'm
at
a
all.
non-practicing Catholic.
Oh,
I
okay.
went through the confirmation process, and after 8th grade, that was pretty much it for me. I I'm not religious, maybe spiritual, like I do believe that there's something after this, but I also wrap science around that to understand that, it might just be a dimension that we can't see into, right? That we can only see once we're out, we shed these mortal coils, to use a Dickens term,
Hmm.
and we might be able to see something at that point. I saw a psychic once who was
Really?
asked the question about religions, yeah, very famous psychic, John Edward, and he said when he was asked by an audience member, you know, you know, if I'm Catholic and that person's Jewish and that person's Protestant and that person's Muslim, what happens when we die? And he says it doesn't matter what airline you take, you all end up at the same airport. Right? And to me, I get that. I get the sense of of what they're saying, and we might not get it while we're alive, but I think we get it when we're dead. So spiritual, maybe. Religious,
I get
not
that.
really. Like I accept the principles of them. I think they make for good laws. I think they make for good morality. I also think sometimes they get twisted,
Oh yeah,
and
heavy.
not all the time. I think that Catholic Church is a perfect example of that. All the good they've done around the world over a millennium or two gets shaded because of the wars and crusades and look at the purges that have happened
Yeah,
and the religious persecution and then the craziness with the priests with the young kids
yeah,
and stuff like that, and it's just
little boys.
you forget about all the good that was done based on those couple of bad apples, and if you start adding them up over a millennium, there's more than just a couple, right? So but that's true of any religion, it's true of any government, it's true of any kind of
I agree
societal
with you there.
construct. So for me, I don't hold that against something, and the roots of Christianity are based in peace. It's hard to throw all that away,
Yeah,
because of something that was not ever intended to be peaceful, that someone had some bad intent.
yeah, for sure. That makes sense. I just like to ask people that because I'm not
Yeah,
religious.
no
I'm
problem.
not religious at all. I'm not. I mean, maybe same with you. Maybe spiritual. I'm kind of. I don't know. I don't know how I really feel, but I like to get perspectives because I think it's interesting. And I don't know. Like I did notice, like you said, you built a pantheon of gods. So I was just curious. I
Yeah, I think
noticed
that's part of
noticed you had a main
any
one.
kind of realm that has fantasy
Yeah,
in
you
it,
have
right?
to.
So, there's Nordic gods and Native American gods and Asian and African, and you look around the world and people have certain beliefs, and then there's common ties among them all, right?
Oh yeah.
And when you get to a realm that you're creating, in most cases, there's an expectation there's at least some level of spirituality there.
Hmm.
So I give them more of a Greek or Roman taste where you have a pantheon of gods,
Okay.
some of which are venerated based on what they provide to you. So Nothos is the god of good fortune. And if you're going to do something that needs good fortune, whether you're rolling the dice or going into battle, you pray to them, or you sacrifice to them, or the goddess of death in my novels is the ancient known as Threnody, and Threnody is just a song that you sing to her to take the dead or the dying, whether they died in battle or they died by disease or old age, away to the Hall of the Ancients and things like that. And it's almost like a goodbye prayer, and that's exactly what a Threnody means. It's a poem or a song to the
Huh.
dead. It's like a requiem, right? And so you find those things and you make cool stuff of them, and I think that makes it much more believable within the system that you're building, so people can follow it easier.
Hmm. No, it's crazy to listen to you. Just how much you've thought all this through. Like it's man, I could never do that. I've always had this delusion that I could write novels like this, but now I'm like I don't know, man. Telling you, it's impressive just how much how much of your brain power you've dedicated to this. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm an epic fantasy writer. In order to write epic, you
Yeah,
have to
it's cool.
think epic. If
It's
you're
cool.
writing a short story, you don't have to think that much.
Yeah.
You just give me just enough that I'm in your realm, right? And I give this example all the time. So if you're talking about contemporary literature and you say that Joe got in the car and drove down the street, I know who Joe is because it's a name I recognize. I also know what a car is. Now, I might have questions about what the car was and the color it was, and
Right.
was it an expensive car? Was it a beater? What was it? But I also know what a street is. But if you're in a fantasy realm, are you in a horse and buggy, or are you in a car? Is there a space suit? Is the sky blue? Is there gravity? Like all those questions, you have to build around that and build a world around. So, for me, I make sure that that's baked into it, so that even if it's subtle, people get it and they'll catch it and be like, "Oh, I like the reference there. I learned a little bit more about governance, or I learned a little bit more about currency. I learned a little bit more about commerce and what they do." And this guy's really thought it out. And I think that builds for a broader world.
Um, do you have any street lamps in any of your novels?
No,
Okay.
I have like lit or like lit and like someone like in one. I'll answer that question in a different way. Yes, there are street lamps that are lit by oil and flame or torches so that people could see at night. One city, a magical city, lights their stuff with a magical flame, and so it never burns out, and it only lights at night, and they can change colors on it, and they can mean certain things when they're signaling ships and stuff like that
Well,
as well. So I've thought about it, but street lamps, no, not in the way that you
so
and I know them.
so the reason I ask is, um, I think Tolkien said the reason the guy who wrote Narnia, I can't think of his name. I know his name, but the
C.S. Lewis,
see,
yeah.
yeah, the reason he put a street lamp in the not line the witch, the street lamp, the big, is because I think Tolkien said you can't have a street lamp in a fantasy novel. I think someone, so he did that just to spite him, but so I just thought
Yep.
that I'd ask
Yeah, no, I
that.
used it in a way to show the difference between the
Uh,
city of
yeah,
magic
I'm
that
not
people
sure if
were
that
in, known
counts or
as
not.
Abacus.
Yeah, I'm not
No,
sure if that
no,
counts
it
or
was
not.
unintentional entirely.
Um, so do you have like, how do you keep track of all like all the, how do you keep track of it all? You know what I'm saying? Do you have like do you keep notes in a notebook? That seems like a good way to go. Do you PowerPoint, like how do you keep track of all
Well,
the
I
details?
storyboard stuff in a PowerPoint form. I used to have like whiteboards in my office when I had a larger den where I was writing, and therefore it kind of looked like a Sweet 16 bracket with the coming together of all of these character arcs and plot arcs and things like that, down to the point where once it got into my novel and I was comfortable with it, I could erase it, and whatever was left, I knew I needed to place in the novel to make the story full. And then, for um, but I do have a notebook. I also have a Word doc that I just put stuff into when I dictate when I'm in the car as part of the notes. And then I cobble all this stuff together and I look at it for names that I want to use or places I want to use or thoughts that I had, quotes that came to me that I hadn't thought about before. I didn't want to lose because they were cool quotes
Yeah,
as part of it. And I wanted to have them in there. So yes, I keep copious notes in a variety of different ways.
yeah, you have to. You have to. I was just curious how you did it, but that makes sense that you do it in multiple ways. Because I imagine you have to
Yeah,
have so
yeah.
much shit.
Whenever it comes to you, man, you can't lose that moment or it's gone
Yeah,
forever sometimes.
things come to me all the time on the road, and then I forget them when I get home. I have all these awesome ideas for like the podcast. Come up with an awesome. I'll do like a whole intro and have it all. Like, this is the coolest intro ever. I'll fucking forget it. But it is what it
Well
is.
said.
So, what else do you do besides write? Then I know you mentioned you have a. So you said you have a sports thing at the beginning of the episode, and then in your message you had mentioned a magazine of something. So
Yeah, yeah. So I own a company called Draft Nation, which is a NFL, NHL, MLB, and NBA scouting guide. And I also have uh, Altered Reality Magazine, which is a online magazine for authors and poets of speculative fiction. So you can go on there. It's free to use. I don't charge anybody to be on it. I don't make any money on it. I have two business partners there. All the money goes back in just maintaining the site. We have a couple of sponsors, thankfully, that offset some of those costs. But we have people on there that are award-winning authors, all the way down to novice, first-time submitters, were their first portal to publication. And so it keeps me fresh in that realm. And I use authors that come through there to build out, because I've got a YouTube channel. I also have something I call the Realm, which is kind of my short form social media, where I will go ahead and just kind of give back to that community by allowing them to come on my show, meet my followers, meet my subscribers, meet my readership, and then they do the same. We follow each other on social media and pass those things, back and forth in the hopes that I'll sell more books and they'll sell more books and they'll get more follows and I'll get more follows.
right.
But the magazine is really what I would describe as sort of for the love of, like there's no profit motive in it at all, but I have to run it like a business or else it's out of pocket, right?
Yeah.
And so those, and I do some other things too. I do some grant writing here or there. Still, I also do communication stuff. So I'll write copy or edit stuff for people and things like that as well. But I've got sort of a holdings company, and all those endeavors, including my writing, roll up underneath that.
What about hobbies? Got any hobbies? Or are you just a fucking business kind of dude?
Dungeons and Dragons,
Oh,
man.
I
You
guess
know what I
yeah, yeah,
mean?
yeah.
That's my favorite. Fantasy football.
That's
I
cool.
used to play fantasy hockey and
Fantasy.
baseball. I just got like too much. I think football was the right amount for me, because it's once or twice a week where you have to, set your teams and you can make trades and stuff like that. Where hockey and baseball were always more difficult because it was a daily thing, and my lifestyle does not allow for those kind of things. And I would fall behind just based on the fact that I couldn't pay attention. You get out of college, your life changes, man. You're like, oh, you're married, you got a family, you got a job, you're traveling. It's the last thing on your mind. Where before it might have been the first thing. It was fun to do. But I do that, and like I said before, I play D&D once a week and have a good time with that, and
Right.
that's my escapism.
That's cool. You're into sports then, I take it, huh? You like sports.
Yeah, I've been, for me, I've always been involved in it since I was young.
Yeah.
I played it. I went,
Okay.
through college. I have a love for the game, but I've always been a guy that looks at it very tactically and strategically. Even though it was fun to play, I really enjoyed being more of a coach and an analyst, and showing how things are happening and what's going on. So for me, even though it was fun on the field, I was always in the booth, on the sideline, on the monitor, and I think that if I were gifted in that way, I think it's the analytics that come from that that help me, and really kind of push me along. Which is why I think I would gravitate into fantasy football and gaming and all the kind of stuff that comes from that, because it's a lot of fun, and you can mix my love of fantasy and fake stuff, with this love of sports, right? So, and for me, it's always been hockey and football, but I do enjoy basketball and baseball to some degree, and a lot of the Olympic sports. I enjoy that as well, but I'm rarely involved in that. It's mostly football and hockey for me.
I'm a hockey guy. I'm not into football a whole lot, but I fucking love hockey. Haven't got to watch it a whole lot lately because I haven't been able to find a good way to watch it that's not $60 a fucking month. But I do love
Tell
hockey.
me about it. I know that's the worst part about. I mean, now with all of these pay for channels and things like that,
It's
or
a fucking
to
nightmare.
watch the Thursday night game, you have to have Amazon Prime or find another way around it. It's another way to get you, nickel and dime you, $10 here, $15 there on a monthly subscription. So it could be painful, and sometimes you just have to make sacrifices on it and say, look, I'm just not going to watch it.
Yeah, that's what I've
I'll
been
wait
doing.
and pick it up somewhere else.
Yeah. Who's your hockey team?
I'm in Pittsburgh, man, so I'm the
Yeah,
Penguins,
Penguins.
through and
They're
through. I've
good.
been that way since I was younger. Now, I will say when I was younger, the Penguins stunk. So I
Yeah.
adopted the Philadelphia Flyers because they were my kind of team. It was, the kind of team that would come out and beat you 4-1 and in the third period beat you up,
Yeah. Oh
for the
yeah.
last period to teach you a lesson. So I was always appreciative of the of the game. But I would have to say the Penguins are my favorite team, and
Yeah.
Flyers are a distant second because they're the biggest rival.
Yeah. I like that. I'm an Avalanche. I'm in Colorado, so Avalanche.
Oh, there you go.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so the Forsberg years are my years. I
Fuck
love the
yeah.
Joe Sakic, Patrick Waugh, those
Patrick Waugh.
those
When
teams,
they just were,
Adam Foote and Blake, and the teams there were just
yeah.
ridiculously good.
Patrick Waugh was
But
them
I
motherfuckers fight like nothing.
yeah, like I wish there was. I mean, that generation of goaltending is gone. The
Oh
Brodeurs, the Waws, those guys, and goaltenders now are kind of replaceable, save for maybe one or two,
yeah.
in any given year. But I had the I was blessed by having Tom Barrasso followed by Marc Andre Fleury. So I've had a good run of goaltenders here for a while.
Right. Oh yeah. Right on. Um, I'm gonna ask you this, and you don't have to answer, or you can answer, and we can cut it out. However, whatever. But I like asking all my guests this. What is your opinion on psychedelics?
I've never done them, and in part it's because when I was younger, it was kind of I came from a very militaristic family, and everybody ahead of me served in the military, um, and that was a no-no.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But like, so for me, I've never had an interest in it. And the closest thing I came to it is beer. One of my grandfathers was from Germany, so of course I drank beer at a very young age. My first beer was seven.
No shit.
I was 7 years old. I had my first Holy Communion, and he gave me about this much of a styrofoam cup worth of beer and said, "You're a man now. Don't tell your grandmother." And that was it.
That's
And so I had my first beer at 7, but I've never been into that scene, and
no.
I appreciate it. I see people
It's not for everybody.
in the especially the creative realm use it to unleash some of that stuff, and
Mm,
there would not be a Beatles in or
that's
I could go through a
yeah.
list of things, whether they're painters from the Middle Ages or whatever that dabbled in that and that helped them open up whatever it had to have to open up. I've never seen a need for it, nor have I ever had a want to do it. And beer was good enough. Wine, I'm a vodka guy. Like that kind of stuff is my speed. But I think part of it for me is I have obsessive compulsive disorder, and there's an addictive nature to that stuff, and I would be just a number one target for that kind of stuff. So I can't do it. So I've stayed away from it. And I also like to be in control. Part of
I
OCD
that
is like you
that'll
need to
get
have
you.
control of everything, and when you don't have control, that's the worst feeling you could
Yeah,
possibly
yeah.
have. So
Well,
for me, yeah, I've tried my best, but
oh, yeah,
it's just not my
I
style.
don't blame you. One thing I will say, the psychedelics I'm talking about, like acid, mushrooms, they're not addictive. I just wanna clear that 'cause that I'll tell you what,
That's
man,
okay.
I've done acid a lot, and I'll tell you one thing, man, more likely than getting addicted is they'll fucking make you terrified. I haven't done acid in years because 'cause the last time was so fucking terrible, I'm scared of it now. I'm like, "Keep that shit away from me," but no, I'm all
Oh, I
about it.
totally get it, man. It's just
Everybody's
not my thing.
no,
I'm
it's
not look, I
no
don't hold it
worries, man.
against anybody or whatever,
No
but yeah,
worries.
it's not for me.
I get it. That's why I like to hear that perspective because I haven't heard that perspective yet. Most people are pretty open to it, but it's, I get it. It's and the control thing is a big thing. I don't recommend it to anybody that doesn't want to do it for sure. Because I'll never tell somebody, "Go, no, you need to try that shit, man." Don't. If you don't wanna do it, stay the fuck away from it, it'll ruin you. But it's
Totally
just
get it.
interesting to hear people's perspectives on it, you know? And I'm from Colorado, man, so, around here we fucking
That's a little loose,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, sorry about my dog. She my puppy
That's
barks at
okay.
she's at this phase where everything terrifies her, man, like, a car drives by, and that's all that happened just now, but whatever.
Yeah, no sweat. Yeah, I got it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, well,
I got 2 myself. I've got a Siberian
dude,
Husky and a
ooh,
Red Fox Lab, so
husky, how's the husky? I've always heard those are difficult. I've always wanted one, but I don't know if I
He's a
can do
diva,
it.
and he speaks in sentences, and he's demanding at
Yeah,
times, but super guard dog,
that's
lovable.
cool.
The lab is the cuddler. Like
Mm,
he needs attention all of the time. If you're not giving it to him, he'll find a way to make you give it to him.
yeah,
But ultimately, they're our kids. We
I
treat them
love
that way,
dogs.
and just they're
I
good
love
dogs,
dogs.
and make sure they get out for their walks, get to the park, feed them well,
Yeah,
and have good times with them.
yeah. I take it you don't have any kids then? If your dogs are your kids?
Nah, nah, no. We decided a while ago not to do it, and
I don't
the
blame you.
dogs have been that for us, so I
Yeah,
don't mind.
no, I don't blame you. My fiance wants kids. I don't want kids. Okay. Well, I don't know. I might be convinced, but I'm only 24, so you know.
Yeah, you got a long way to go, man. You'll hit that point, and you'll be like, you got to make a decision. There's a decision coming, but you're young enough where that doesn't matter.
Yeah. So you said you got a VR game coming out with this. You into VR at all?
I am. It's a lot of fun. The first part of it will be augmented reality that comes out. The company I'm working with is teamed with Niantic, which is the company that makes Pokemon Go. So it's a lot like that will be the first version of it in 26, and then
So
VR will be the year after
so
that.
when you say
So
augmented
looking forward
reality,
to
you mean like your cell phone, like through the cell phone screen, like
yeah. So the same way you would catch a Pokemon on the street,
right?
or you would
Okay.
go into a bar and click a QR code, and it
Yep.
would take you
Gotcha.
somewhere, it would show you an image. It'll be that kind of stuff. The
Okay.
difference here will be you'll be able when you slay the dragon in the game, you'll be able to rate its treasure and level your character up. But there's also real life things that you'll get in the game, like
Mm,
e-coupons that you can redeem at. Hey, you slew the dragon. You're now level 2, and you got this magic sword, and here's a coupon, and buy one get one at Subway or Starbucks or something like
oh
that.
yeah.
And so you'll have in-game sponsorships on the commercial side, which will also make money for the gamers, and will also make money for me, make money for them, and
Right.
that's really kind of the role there.
Yeah. I don't. Well, I'm more interested in the VR though. Fucking, I love VR. So tell me about that. What's the idea on that?
So we're 2.5 years from that, right? So
Okay.
we're
So
starting right now. We're doing the storyboarding on it,
okay,
and
you're
the
still
difference,
figuring
I
it out.
think, what I would be able to tell you is going into it so far has been uh, crazy because like you have this novel that's very linear, and when I say that, there's lines that go in different directions, but they all go forward,
Hmm.
right? And you know what every character is going to do and how it's going to end, and the plot lines are going to end, and when they intersect, and what the characters do, and all that fun stuff. But but the the when you're doing a video game, it's non-linear. So you could make a character that wants to fight the good guys and be a bad guy. You have an avatar that you've created that doesn't want to go on certain adventures that follow linearly through the story. So you have to create an entire realm. And what I've learned from that is I don't know anything about it. So I stay out of the coders' ways. I stay out of the developers' ways. They know what games need, so that they're, because you decide one day that you're going to fight the good guy, next day you're going to be redeemed and fight the bad guy and collect all of their weapons and do whatever you want to do. And you can do that. In my realm of books, where I'm saying, no, that doesn't happen in the story, they're saying, well, it could happen in ours.
Uh,
So what I did was I created the fencing around which the story happens, and then from their individual activities come opportunities for them to find their way through the game, and the story is just a pathway for them, and
okay.
they can veer off the path and stuff like
So
that. So it's been a little different, and we're just at that storyboarding
okay.
phase right now, where I haven't seen much of it save for the storyboards of it.
Okay. So you probably might not even be able to answer my next question, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. So is it gonna be like a big open world kind of like Skyrim kind of thing where fucking you go do anything anytime, or is he gonna going for like a linear story as much as possible, or
I think it's a linear story, but in all honesty,
don't know?
it's too nascent of a project. I really don't know. I don't know what
I get it.
platform it's being
I
built off.
get it.
I think it's on Unreal, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, I got excited reading about it. I love VR, man. I fucking there's not enough. There's not enough
Talk to me in
cool.
6 months. I'll have a better understanding of where it is then, for sure.
That's cool. There's not a lot of cool fantasy VR games out there right now, so I got a little excited that maybe something was coming, but you know,
Yeah, it's coming, but it'll take
it'll
a
be a
couple of
while. Oh yeah,
years.
they take forever, man. Fucking video games these days take forever to make. It's crazy. I don't know if you play video games much, but
I sure do. I've been a gamer since I
yeah,
was a
oh yeah,
wee lad. Yes.
oh yeah. What was your first video game? Do you remember? This was a long time ago,
It had
probably.
it had to be like Pitfall or Pac-Man, like one of the simple games
Yeah,
that your parents are playing, and they show it to you, and it's old school. It wasn't like the
yeah,
same thing, or the Mario Brothers Mario Kart back in the day,
yeah,
like that kind of stuff.
yeah.
And then as you kind of grow up, like Diablo and some things, because I always enjoyed playing anything that was related to fantasy, so you find your way into that stuff.
Yeah. I really liked Zelda, the Link to the Past. Zelda
Of
was my first
course,
video game. I've been into swords and shit ever since, so that's kind of where that started for me. So I've been into Zelda ever
I got you.
since. But
Yeah, no, hey, and Zelda's very popular. I get that a lot at my cons. People will walk by in a Zelda costume.
mhm,
More often than not, you'll see at least a
okay,
few of
I
those
bet
with
for
every
sure.
convention you go to.
And it got
Very
really,
popular.
yeah, it got really big after the Switch one came out too. But I'm all for it. I'm like, make more of them. I just want to fucking eat those up. I
Yeah,
don't, not a huge fan of Nintendo, but whatever. That's a different podcast. Well,
no, I mean Nintendo is a little like Blades of Steel was my Nintendo game.
yeah,
If you remember that for hockey, I know you're a hockey guy, so
yeah,
that
oh,
might have
yeah.
been a little bit before your time.
Yeah. A little. I don't know. Never heard of it, but yeah,
Check it out, Blades of Steel. It
yeah.
was it was Madden it was NHL hockey before there was NHL hockey
Sure.
on PlayStation or Xbox.
Yeah, they don't have hockey on PC. It's fucking lame. I'm a PC guy and can't play any good hockey games on PC. But whatever. Anyways, we're at about an hour. You got anything else you wanna bring up? Talk
Just
about?
to first of all, thank you for having me on. I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks for
that. And
coming
then
on.
ultimately, if anybody wants to find my stuff, I'm real easy to find. You can find me at JV Hilliard, HILLIARD.com, and
I know.
at JV Hilliard Books on most of the social media places to follow me. I also try to answer my DMs there at least
Cool.
once a day. Make sure I stay up with stuff, and check out the books and let me know what you think. I'm pretty responsive, and I try to let everybody know that I thank them whenever they reach out. So I appreciate coming on the show, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on, man. You're actually the first person I met on that pod match thing, so it was kind of cool that you reached out to me. I was like, hell yeah. So
Oh no, I use that all the
it's
time to
awesome,
match
ain't
up.
it?
So yeah,
It
I'm
is
glad
cool
to
as
see you
shit.
there, man. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yep. Have a nice one, man. That was JV Hilliard, everybody. Go check out his book. Go check out his website. Real cool dude. Real glad he came on. You're about to listen to Artificial General Intelligence by Tall Jenny. This is my first listener submission, so go check that out.
We had to crawl so we could walk. We had to talk so we could sing. But we all have to come together to destroy humanity. We had to crawl so we could walk. We had to talk so we could sing. But we all have to work together to diminish our humanity. We have an artificial general intelligence, and it will laugh at your wants for genius and excellence. We had to call so you could answer. We can tiptoe, but you are the prancer. Now we all have to burn together to extinguish the calamity. We will fall where you can't climb, and it will take a lick of time, because we already set the stage beyond divinity. We have an artificial general intelligence, and it will laugh at your wants for genius and excellence. Our relationship to code is now considered intimate, and neurons fly like roads and chips. It's not legitimate. It's not legitimate. It's not legitimate. It's not artificial general intelligence, and it will laugh at your wants for genius and excellence. Our relationship to code is now considered